Jasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Banachari Jamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Shri Radhe. जय राधा माधव जय राधा माधव राधा माधव जय राधा माधव जय प्रहलाद नृसिंह प्रहलाद नृसिंह प्रहलाद नृसिंह जय प्रहलाद नृसिंह जय लक्ष्मी लक्ष्मी नृसिंह लक्ष्मी नृसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नृसिंह जय पंचतत्व 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 जय पंचतत्व जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद गौर प्रेमानंदे जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्रीमद अभयचरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन बीबीटी फाउंडर आचार्य जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Nama. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desatharane Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudire nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttamaśloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. Hare Krishna, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 31, Text 23. Please repeat after me. Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyash Cha Bhagavat Kataha Shravayitva Brahmalokam Yayao Svayambhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyascha Bhagavat Katha Shravayitva Brahmalokam Yayau Svayam Bhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyascha Bhagavat Katha Shravayitva Brahmalokam Yayau Svayam Bhuvo Munihi Maitreya Uvacha Iti Prachetaso Rajan Anyascha Bhagavat Katha Shravayitva Brahmalokam Yayau Svayam Bhuvo Munihi. Please recite.
We shall read the word by word translation. Maitreya Uvacha.
Maitreya said, Iti, thus, Prachetasa, the Prachetas, Rajan, O king, Anyaha, others, Cha, also, Bhagavad Katha, topics about the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shravayitva, after instructing. Brahmalokam, to Brahmaloka. Yayao, went back. Svayambhuva, the son of Lord Brahma. Munihi, the great sage. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhacharanaravindra Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The translation reads as follows. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear King Vidura, Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. Please repeat. The great sage Maitreya continued. My dear King Vidura, Sri Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, thus described all these relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the Prachetas. Afterward, he returned to Brahmaloka. Purport. A very short purport. One has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. The Prachetas got this opportunity from the great sage Narada, who told them of the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannathaya Te Namah Panchatattvatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktyavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Namo Mahavadanaaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavade Pashatya Desatarane Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Before I begin, I would like to seek the blessings and mercy of all the assembled Vaishnavas so that I may be able to execute this devotional service for primarily my own benefit and purification. Hare Krishna. So now we see that we are here in Canto 4 discussing the instruction of Narada Muni to the Prachetas, and today's purport is very short yet very insightful, because Prabhupada actually highlights this very important fact of how the Prachetas got the opportunity of hearing from Narada Muni, and who told them about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I was hoping that perhaps we could explore the importance of hearing from a pure devotee, the importance especially from hearing or taking the instructions from the spiritual master, and how it is a pure devotee or the spiritual master that can reveal Krishna to us. And it's very interesting, because now what is happening is the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is a conversation between who? Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. That's like the overwhelming conversation, the blanket, you could say, conversation of Sukadev Goswami instructing Parikshit Maharaj, who has taken shelter of him upon hearing, realizing that his death is approaching. And it is... And also Sutta Goswami, actually, yeah, you're right. That's Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya, isn't it? Yeah, and telling, oh yes, it's like so many different conversations happening. That's correct, I forgot. That there is a conversation of Sutta Goswami, who was hearing or was present in the assembly. And Sutta Goswami is narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya who have taken shelter of him to hear about the glories of Sukadev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, and the pastimes related in Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is Srimad Bhagavatam? Srimad Bhagavatam is again a conversation between Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj had approached Sukadev Goswami at the time of death. And it is said that when Parikshit Maharaj got the curse that he would die in 7 days, he could have very well counteracted the curse. But he used this opportunity to actually turn to Krishna, become Krishna conscious. And we also know from the Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, Antakale cha mameva smarmukta kalevaram, which means that at the time of death, the success of our life will be if we are able to remember Krishna. So that's the second phase of the conversation. And within this conversation also there are multiple conversations. And here in this chapter or this canto especially, we are again in a conversation in these recent chapters between Maitreya, Rishi and Vidura. King Vidura, we know he's quite a famous personality. And who is King Vidura? Yes. And well, he's addressed as a king because he was in a way born in the dynasty. And we see that there are 3 brothers, of course. We know Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidur. So Dhritarashtra and Pandu clearly were born out of queens, but Vidura was born out of, he's also a son of Vyasadeva, but he was born out of a maidservant. And therefore, although he has kingly qualities and is partially of this dynasty, still because of his mother being hailing from quote-unquote a lower section of the society, he was often also referred to as the most knowledgeable one, but also the fact was that he had taken birth. But the divine qualities that he had are quite noteworthy. So King Vidura here has approached Maitreya Rishi, who is then relating the pastimes of the Prachetas. And what is happening here, it is a conversation between Narada Muni and the Prachetas. So it's very interesting because a few weeks ago I was reflecting on this fact, how conversations are one of the best ways of learning actually. And I was giving this example of how when you learn a language, and if you go to language school, or if you have, the best way to learn a language is through conversations. And also it is said that when you have to give some instruction which is a bit, difficult or to digest, you can also do it in the way of a conversation. And for example, if you want to make somebody understand something easily, the best way to make them understand is a conversation, through a conversation. And how is that? For example, if nobody knows what humor means, then I can describe it that Mr. A said B, Mr. B said this, and Mr. C said this, and Mr. A responded like this. And the person himself will also laugh, and then reading the conversation, if that's a joke, then he will also understand how the word humor can be used. Similarly, conversations are a great mechanism to teach. And therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very beautifully depicting this also, how conversations are one of the best ways actually to learn and to teach. So here we are at this stage where Prachetas have met Narada Muni, and Narada Muni is giving them very valuable instructions of how to become Krishna conscious and how to take to spiritual life seriously. And mind you, the Prachetas were actually Kshatriyas, born of a Kshatriya dynasty, but then they take to meditation and tapasya, austerities, underwater, to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's very interesting, some verses ago, 3 kinds of births are described. Does anyone remember what are the 3 kinds of births? Yes, that's right. One birth is out of semen, like we know, which is very common to us. I am trying to find the exact place where it is here. Nonetheless, can't find it. So one of the ways is through semen, the second way is through yes, getting in touch with the spiritual master and receiving initiation. That's the second birth. And yet there is another birth. Any guesses? What is the third birth? That's close. Huh? The third birth, which is described, is when we engage in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that I found very beautiful. Yeah, so I'm not able to find it, nonetheless. Yeah, so these are the three kinds of birth. So first birth is through semen, the second is through the spiritual master, and third is when we are using this lifetime in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. That's how it's described in the text. And you will find it's in this chapter itself. And now we are at a juncture where Narada Muni is further instructing them and telling them about different important aspects of devotional service, of relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Narada Muni in this verse previous to this says, where is that person who is actually grateful and will not worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And it's very logical, and it should be a very circumstantial thing that we feel grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and worship him. And at this verse, Maitreya Rishi is describing to Vidura this happening, which is how Narada Muni is instructing the Prachetas. And after this, what happens is the Prachetas then begin to ponder on their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Narada Muni returns back to Brahmaloka. And I thought we could explore maybe the importance of hearing. Jamuna, could you do me a favor? Could you wipe the board clean? And then we could explore something I recently came across, which was quite interesting. So what happens is, in the material world, it is said that you believe by seeing, right? For example, they say, don't believe in what you hear, only believe in what you see. And that's the philosophy they follow. But then in our spiritual tradition, especially in the Gauriya Vaishnava tradition, we are a Shiksha tradition. And what does that mean? That it is based fully on teachings and especially hearing. And we see that here, of course, also is I would still need a few minutes. Maybe you take your seat and then we do this exercise. So you would have to ride. Maybe you would have to get up again, if you don't mind. Or if Sundar wants to get up, I don't know. So, this process of hearing is very, very important. And in our tradition, we know Shruti, Smriti, Purana, Adi, Pancharatra. So Shruti, which means that by hearing, so we have the Shruti Shastra, Smriti Shastra. So we have scriptures which are entirely based on hearing. And we also see the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is based on this hearing, the importance. And we also see in the Navavidha Bhakti, 9 types of devotional service, there is Shravanam, Kirtanam. So how is hearing the primary process? Because of course we understand in the outside world it is said, you believe what you see, then why do we believe what we hear? That is a good question to ask, isn't it? Why do we believe what we hear? And we know that there are 3 kinds of pramanas, 3 kinds of evidences, or 3 kinds of paths of belief. What are the 3 kinds? Shabda Praman, Anuman Praman, and Pratyaksha Praman. So let's go with Anuman Praman. Anuman Praman is where it's like a guesswork, you estimate. That's Anuman Praman, very simply put. Then is Pratyaksha Praman, that you experiment and Pratyaksha Praman is that you experience it. And then Shabda Praman, you believe and follow the words of the Vedas or Shri Guru. That's Shabda Praman. And this is the way how knowledge is established and faith is condensed. Now, how is this possible that our tradition is so deeply based on hearing? And I was thinking, first we speak of the importance of hearing from Bhagavad Gita, and then there is an acronym that I thought we could explore together, which I heard. Yes, so you know already, Lokeshwar Swami, he's our acronym acharya of the movement right now. And there is this acronym he has, it's HOLES. You know already what the full thing is? HOLES. HOLES. Because you know, one can think our philosophy is quite flawed because it's based on hearing. And in the day today, you don't believe what you hear. So people can totally think that this is absolutely nonsense because we believe and there are a lot of holes in our philosophy. But then we will explore what holes do we really have in our philosophy. But before that, let's explore the importance of hearing from the Bhagavad Gita. From the Bhagavad Gita, we see that devotees who heard properly about Krishna, what happened? Chapter 1, text 19. I could maybe just say the quality, but I don't know if you also want to look at the text. Maybe let's make it like this, because I see Sundar Jagannath Prabhu has his phone. So we use Veda base and we go to chapter 1, text 19. If you can read the Sanskrit. Okay, Gita base.
Chapter 1, text 19.
Or you read the translation, that also works. Maybe better. Just translation is better, makes more sense.
The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra.
And we see that the sound vibration can be so powerful that it can make one fearless. And those who are not taking shelter, it can bring them fear. Then we can go to 2:11. We have quite a few verses we can explore.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "While speaking learned words, you are mourning of what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead."
So if you hear properly, what happens? You become free of lamentation. So here there are different circumstances which are being pointed out, actually, on the contrary. So when you don't hear properly, you are full of fear, and therefore if you hear properly, you become fearless. And if you don't hear properly, you're full of lamentation without self-realization. But if you hear properly, you become free of lamentation. Then we have 2:13.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
So if you hear properly, what is the effect of it? You become undisturbed. Then we have 2:41.
Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched.
So when you hear properly, you become resolute in purpose. So like this, there are many examples that I have, but it's like 2:45, 2:66. Then also we can go to 5:23 maybe, some other chapters. Then we also have 4:10, 4:36, but let's explore 5:23.
Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world.
So if one hears properly, one can check the forces of sense gratification and the forces of anger and the different sensory objects. Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaurnathai ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Then we have 7.1.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt."
So if one hears properly, according to 7.1, one can become free from doubt. And 9.2.
This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed.
So if one hears properly, one becomes joyful. So these are various examples like from all throughout the Bhagavad Gita. I don't want to go further into it. But then you can see that if you read the Bhagavad Gita carefully, it actually, if you read between the lines and within the inner meaning of the Bhagavad Gita, it's a very nice, that's why so many devotees, I know like for example Vijaya Prabhu for the past, I don't know, I think he said 20 years, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita every day. And every day he reads it and still it's afresh and anew. Because the more, that's the transcendental literature, the more you read, the more it reveals itself and you can explore it. And also I have some citations from Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, Bhagavatam 1:18-10 says, "Those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and qualities of the personality of Godhead who acts wonderfully." And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada very importantly says, "The systematic hearing of the transcendental activities, qualities and names of Lord Sri Krishna pushes one towards eternal life." So it's the push that we need, hearing. Systematic hearing means knowing Him gradually in truth and fact. And this knowing Him in truth and fact means attaining eternal life. So it's quite interesting that the systematic hearing is a very gradual process. So it doesn't mean that we start hearing and we are Paramahamsas immediately. But the systematic hearing, that means going according to the structure of the instructions and properly actually studying the books. What happens? It pushes one towards eternal life. And very interestingly also, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-16, Prabhupada states, "One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then he can at once realize the presence of Lord Krishna on every page." So it's quite interesting of how if we listen with attention from a real person, so which means a bona fide spiritual master, one can realize the presence of the Lord in every page. Have you had that experience when you read Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita, that you feel Krishna in every page? So that's how if we deeply connect with the literature. And also Sattvarupa Maharaj has this book on reading. I forget the title of the book, but it's also a very insightful book. It's about reading actually. Reading transformations or transformation from reading, something like that. It's following his japa transformations. So it's a book about actually how to read and his journey through reading. Yeah, that's japa book, but then also I think he has something called Reading Reform. That's also quite nice. If you can get a copy of it, I have at home. It's quite nice. From Sattvarupa Maharaj. He's a very honest writer. He's one of my favorites. He writes very honestly. And you can also relate to his writing. You know, it's very good for practitioners actually to read. So, Prabhupada further continues that no one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. So, purity of mind is very important to have proper attention. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. So how does purity of mind come? Through purity of action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. So you cannot be pure in action if you are not pure in these 4 activities. But somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of Bhagavatam. It's so incredible. This is from a purport, actually 1.344, where Prabhupada says how, he says to have rapt attention, you have to be pure in mind. To be pure in mind, you have to be pure in action. To be pure in action, you have to be pure in all these activities. But even if you're not pure in these things, but somehow or other, if you are able to somehow or the other hear with attention from the right person at the very beginning of your spiritual life, you can see Lord Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And sadhu sanga, sarva shastra kaya, labha matra sadhu sange, sarva siddhi hoy. So Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita speaks about this, that 1/11th of a second also, if you can get with the pure devotee, that is sarva siddhi. It's all auspicious and it's all beneficial. And also Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaha Uday, that this seed of devotional service actually has to be watered from Shravana. And who do we hear from? We hear from the disciplic succession. We hear from the Acharyas, and particularly we are Rupa Nugas. We hear from Srila Rupa Goswami. That's why we read Nectar of Devotion every day. But most importantly, we are Prabhupada Nugas, Prabhupada following the footsteps of Sri Rupa Goswami, and we must hear from Srila Prabhupada or read from Srila Prabhupada every day. And it is also like today's quote, Srila Prabhupada was saying, how rendering service to the pure devotee actually leads to the firming of our, the stability of our Krishna consciousness. And just this one last reference I want to give before we go into this acronym. So this is from Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 11 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Brahma is speaking. O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing. And thus their hearts become cleansed and you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. Another beautiful verse which emphasizes on the importance of actually seeing Krishna through the ears. And this is very nice. This reminds me of the story of Vikramaditya and the 3 dolls, if I remember the story. There are many versions of the story. And also there is a different version probably which I remember. But it is, I think, Kalidas who was in the court of Vikramaditya. And then 3 dolls of gold, they were presented. And then the king was asked, what is the price? Can you estimate the cost of these dolls? And then the king then invited his courtmen to come and explain what could be the correct cost or price of these dolls. And several attempts were made. And then Kalidas came and he really inspected. You know the story already? You know the story? So Kalidas came and he inspected these murtis, these dolls which were there. And there was no way, because the 3 dolls, they were actually priced differently. That was the thing, that they were different in their price, but then they looked the same, they weighed the same, everything was the same, and everyone was confused. So Kalidas was very closely looking at these dolls and exploring what is different. And then he asked for a wire. So they got him like a thin wire. And what did Kalidas do? The Kalidas then put the wire through the ears of one doll, or the murti. And then what happened? It came out from the other ear. And then Kalidas said, this is not worth so much. And then he went on to the second murti. He put the this wire through one of the ear, and then it came out. Then it went to the heart. And then he said, this is much better and he then quoted the price. And then he went to the third one, and he put the wire in. It went through the ear and came out through the mouth, and he said, this is the most expensive. So the moral of the story is that this is the importance, that sometimes when we hear from one ear and we take it out from the other. So this is, and also actually Srimad Bhagavatam describes different kinds of shrotas, or different kinds of listeners. It's the Chataka bird, which drinks directly from the cloud, the fish, who is so there are different, if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam, we don't have much time, but there are different kinds of listeners. You can explore it yourself maybe. It's also very nice to self-analyze and introspect, what kind of listeners are we. But then the moral of the story that I just narrated is that when we hear and it comes out from the other ear, that's the cheapest kind of hearing. That's not with rapt attention. Then the second kind is when we hear and we reflect on it, it goes to our heart and we think about it throughout the day. And the third kind of hearing is when we hear about it and we apply it and we share it. So that's the best kind of hearing. And I thought, now that we are speaking of hearing so much, and if you remember, I was speaking of how maybe our philosophy is full of holes because we are believing in what we hear. So now, if Jamuna, we could request your assistance. If you can, in bold letters towards the end of the board, write holes in capital. Maybe in the second half of the board, like big letters, holes. Yeah, and so you can space them apart. Oh yeah, okay, it's holes. Oh yeah. So also so that Sundar can see it. So now, all of these words, actually letters, are abbreviations. So actually, the success lies with H, hearing. So you can on top write just hearing. Yeah. All credits to Keshav Maharaj. O actually stands for observing. So we hear, for example, certain truth, and then we observe the truth, right? We hear some important qualities, and then we observe them in our surroundings. L stands for living. We observe, and then we try to live what we hear. And E stands for whatever we hear, we begin to observe, we begin to live, and then we experience. Yeah, of course. And therefore, when you experience it, then you feel this, yes, but it's even more interesting, that when you experience it, that you can't help it but share. Yeah. So thank you very much, Jamuna. So this is quite interesting, that sometimes they can claim that, you know, hearing is full of holes, our philosophy is full of holes, but it's very nice to see that yes, it is full of holes. How? H for hearing, O for observation or observing, L for living, E for experience, and S for sharing. So as devotees, when we are told that, you know, hearing is a very flawed process and it's full of holes, we say yes, and then we explain to them. So basically the whole part of how we are, you know, we are a preaching movement. Now we are going on of Harinam every day, and then we also try to go out on book distribution. So we are sharing. And why are we sharing? We are able to share only because of the preceding steps. Because we have heard, because we observe, we live it, and we experience it. So it's quite interesting that the whole process of devotional service and the whole preaching movement actually begins from the path of hearing. And therefore in this verse also we see the importance of hearing is there. Srila Prabhupada says, one has to hear about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a pure devotee. And it is our great fortune actually that in this day and age of darkness and misguidedness, we have the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, who is a pure devotee and is giving us knowledge as it is. So we are very grateful, and what we need to do is therefore propagate, complete holes and propagate this preaching mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So yes, time is up, and that's what I wanted to share. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Unfortunately, we are out of time. But if there is some really burning question, we can take it, or we can discuss it over breakfast.
Just very quick.
Yes.
This verse that you quoted, or you know, I don't, passage that you quoted, that if one, if one hears
with rapt attention.
Yes, then one can see Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam. What
yes.
Where is that from?
This is actually a purport of Srila Prabhupada, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 44.
And then he says, in the beginning of one's spiritual life.
Yes.
What does it mean?
But somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Sri Krishna in person in the pages of Bhagavatam. And this, I think it connotes the fact that when Srila Prabhupada went preaching, when he was attracting the young boys and girls of America, they were not people who were pure in mind, perhaps not pure in action, and not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But despite that fact, because they had heard from Srila Prabhupada and were in contact with him, we see the result, right? So for Prabhupada, it was a lived experience that when, despite all the impurities, if one simply tries to, or even endeavors to hear with rapt attention from the right person, it can make magic happen. But what is the thing? At the very beginning. So at the very beginning, that's the seed that we're talking about. Then one can, that foundation is so strong that one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in the pages of the Bhagavatam. That means, at the very beginning also connotes the fact that you are not then confused by other philosophies and perceptions, So I think that is also quite valuable. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much for your time and rapt attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I can send you the lecture. It's actually a Gita Jayanti lecture. Right? There are several small parts. I think this was chapter 7 of the Gita Jayanti description that we gave. I can send the link to you. No, I'm do you have some time afterwards?
Sure, yes. Yeah, I have a meeting from 9 to something, but then after that I'm free. It's just, we moved to Lassi at 11, but between 10 to 11 I might have some time.
Thank you so much.
You're right back home. I switch off the light.